Right.
They had their own TV.
In the party, right, absolutely.
Masood?
Well, I'm not on this one, I can leave,
First
right?
time in the
All right.
Good evening, calling the special meeting of the Bureau of Public Works to order. First order of business is the election of a chairperson. For purposes of a nomination, the chair recognizes Commissioner Bazzano.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to nominate Calixto Torres as the chairman of the Bureau of Public Works. Commissioner Torres is currently on the committee. He's on the committee for approximately 5 years, currently serving as its chairman. Commissioner Torres has an extensive background and experience in the field of public works, where he was the liaison between the city manager's office and the Public Works Department for the city of Hartford. On a personal note, I've known Cal for many, many years, and he's always proved himself to be an individual with high moral standard, hardworking, dedicated, and honest. And it's an honor for me to place the nomination of Cal Torres for chairman of the Bureau of Public Works, and ask my colleagues to support me as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. For purposes of a second, the chair recognizes Commissioner Avedisian.
Thank you, Chris. Yes, I would second Commissioner Torres's nomination. I've been on the board for a while now, and I've listened to his questions, and they're damn good questions. And they keep us on our toes, and they, even as a simple thing that comes about, he asks some really pointed, deep questions to make sure that we're on the right track. And I think it's going to be great to have him on.
Thank you, Commissioner. Are there any other nominations? Any other nominations? Hearing none, all in favor of Calixto Cal Torres to be chair of the Bureau of Public Works, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Congratulations, Cal.
Meeting is called to order. First of all, let me thank you for your confidence in the vote. I'm also thankful for the promotion and the increase in salary. At this time, we should move to item number 4. Public comments relative to agenda items. Do we have?
We're on number 3.
I'm
Election of
Oh,
vice
I'm
chair.
sorry. I jumped the gun here. Okay, it's actually item 3, the election of a vice chairperson.
That's close.
So is there a nomination for the election of the chairperson, vice chairperson? Commissioner Dwella?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It is with great pleasure and great honor that I have the opportunity to place a nomination in the name of John Bazzano for the Vice Chairman of the Bureau of Public Works. I think we all heard the articulation that Commissioner Wolf made, and I would also like to second that too. And I think that John definitely has the character and the ability and the understanding of government to serve in this position, the Bureau of Public Works.
Is there a second?
I would like to second Commissioner Bazzano's nomination to be vice chair for the reasons that Commissioner DeBella cited.
Yes, all in favor of,
And further nomination.
sorry?
Ask if there's any further.
Any nominations?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I didn't think there was anybody going to oppose that, but yes, are there any other nominations for vice chairman of the Public Works Bureau Committee?
Hearing none.
Hearing none.
Nominations closed.
All All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Congratulations, Mr. Bassano. Okay. Now we can go to number 4. Public comments relative to agenda items. Do we have anybody in the audience or anybody on the internet? Hearing none, we'll move to item 5, independent consumer advocate comments and questions relative to agenda items. Are there any comments
Hi.
from?
None at this time, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Number 6, approval of minutes of November 19th, 2025, and public hearing minutes of December 1st, 2025.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none?
Abstain.
One abstention?
I missed it.
Okay, one abstention? Okay, the motion carries. Number 7, consideration and potential action, report of hearing and layout assessment of Walcott Hill Road, Weathersfield, with a public hearing for December 1st, 2025. Okay, we have a presentation.
Yes.
Thank you.
Be quick, we promise. Thank you. All right, good evening, everyone, and congratulations to the newly elected chairs. My name is Jessica Coelho. I'm the Senior Project Manager, and I have here with me Annie Dangler. She's the engineer on this sewer petition project, which is a sewer request for extension on Walcott Hill Road in Weathersfield. And she's going to run through some of the details of this project for you.
Thank you, Jess. This is the timeline of events that have taken place to date. On April 18th, 2024, the district received a petition for sewer extension along Walcott Hill Road in Weathersfield. This petition was received by 5 properties total. The 5 properties can be seen in the image to the right, highlighted in yellow. The petition letter cited issues with failing septic systems and the need for sewer service. To gauge the level of interest in sewer extension, a canvass was mailed to the 5 properties, which are the only properties in the area not currently served. Responses from the canvass showed that 4 properties were in favor of sewer extension and 1 was opposed. The 1 property that was opposed noted that they recently paid to replace their existing septic system. Following the canvass, an engineering study was completed and it was determined that 5 properties could be served by a gravity sewer main. The town sanitarian was then contacted and stated their support of sewer extension in the area. Given that the town sanitarian and the majority of property owners were in favor of sewer extension, a public hearing was then scheduled and held on December 1st, 2025. Prior to the hearing, each property owner was mailed their individual sewer assessment. Of the properties that attended the public hearing, 3 were in favor and none were opposed. However, 2 properties were not in attendance, nor did they submit a comment to the district clerk following the public hearing. This is the agenda map of the area. This map depicts the proposed layout for sewer extension from the existing sewer main to serve the 5 properties outlined in bold. This extension would require the installation of 310 linear feet of 8-inch PV sewer main, 3 new sewer manholes, and 5 new sewer laterals. This map also depicts the results from the petition, canvass, and public hearing summarized in the key on the bottom right.
Thanks, Annie. So as Annie mentioned, we do establish the assessments that would be charged to the petitioners if we were to move forward and design and construct this project. These assessments would be charged to these customers regardless of whether or not they connected. It would be charged once the main was built. So this list is what's sent out to all of these petitioners, and it shows their frontages and their total assessments for each property. This is based on our approved rates, which includes the frontage per foot, the lateral installation to the property line, as well as the dwelling unit count. These are all single-family homes. So you can see here it totals assessments of $82,780. And this slide just shows the breakdown of the estimated project costs, which would total approximately $900,000 to build this sewer main. It is estimated a bit high. We do have a high contingency here because we do anticipate rock in the street. We'll know more once we get into the design, but that's why it's a bit high, and you can see the offset of the assessments here. Any questions?
If I may, Mr.
Yeah,
Chair.
I have a question. Could we go back to the screen that showed 5 houses with the 3 yeses and nos?
Mhm.
Now, the new pipe is only going to cover the first 3 houses?
So they'll be able to serve both sides of the street. So those are the 5 houses that have the bold outline around the box. The green on the top are the 3 that showed up to the public hearing.
Right.
And then the 2 on the bottom, 1 is in favor, 1 is not. But it will serve all 5 properties.
Okay.
So it stops a little short because the other non-bold houses are already served.
All right, thank you.
I mean, Mr. Chairman, through you. So we're going to be talking in detail tonight about the changes to accessible sewer fund and how it's been used in the past. We've since changed that ordinance. We've also changed and added language on stormwater ordinances and sewer laterals. So I don't want to jump to number 10, but I just need to make the point on this project. This is a perfect example of the accessible sewer fund has about $18 million in it. We changed the language in the accessible sewer fund so that we can have cost sharing agreements with developers that have projects that are not on the radar screen. They just kind of pop up in the middle of the year. And traditionally, the accessible sewer fund, $18 million, would pay the debt service on a project like this because the accessible sewer fund is $18 million worth of revenue received from developments. This money goes into this account. It's above and beyond the sewer fund, help me, John, the 35%.
With fund balance.
Fund balance. It's above and beyond that, right? So the $18 million is meant to, we could always, prior to changing the ordinances, we could utilize that money for debt service, or we could use CIP, ad valorem debt service to do these projects. We still are allowed to do that. But now because we've modified the accessible sewer fund to also be able to use that money for these shared cost agreements, like for example, Bushnell South, we're going to be receiving $3 million. This money needs to go into the accessible sewer fund. It needs to be identified for that project and that project only. And then the only way to pay for that project is through the accessible sewer fund because as part of our ordinances, we cannot provide and build a system to solely serve a developer and charge our towns. So that's why we made those changes. So now it's really important when staff and we have these petitions and we want to determine, are we going to build this sewer system? We have to have the conversation, at this committee, at Board of Finance and the full board to say, where do we want to fund this from? Because our goal is to really now protect that $18 million for those kinds of projects, like, again, Bushnell South. We're getting $3 million, but we need the money, the rest of the money to pay for that project. So where's it going to come from? We can't charge ad valorem. It has to come through this fund, whether debt service or pay-go. So we will every year now, and we have agenda items here, we're asking this committee and Board of Finance and the full board will actually approve all of the projects that are in this accessible sewer fund. And then any project that could be funded, like this one, Wolcott Hill, that could be funded from this accessible sewer fund, we have to decide, are we going to charge it to ad valorem? I truly believe that if the board so chooses, the committee so chooses to build this project, we never get the payback there is no payback on these kinds of projects. It's $84,000 and it's $1 million project. But it truly is to serve our communities, so it really should be paid for through ad valorem. And so I just want you to think about that when we will be coming and putting a project on the accessible sewer fund or not. It'll be and you will have, when we want to build, I'll use Bushnell South as an example, when we do receive that $3 million and we're working on finalizing that agreement with CRDA as we speak, When we do receive that 3 million, it will go in, it'll be designated for that project only. This committee, finance, and the full board will also identify how much do we need to take from that 18 million, or what debt service. Jonathan is gonna have to make sure, our CFO is gonna have to make sure, whatever projects are on the list, we actually have enough money to pay for them. And then what we're hoping is that when the board identifies what will be spent, this 18 million, how it will be spent, on what projects, those projects have been prioritized. So when we do get a look at this project, for example, and the board so chooses, I don't want to charge this to Avalorum. It has to go to accessible sewer. Okay, well then what's coming off the list on the accessible sewer? The board will make that decision, this committee will make that decision. Right now, we just have a big list. Engineering has a list of projects that have been petitioned over the years, and we got $18 million, and whoever comes up first and knocks on the door and asks us to build a sewer is what we bring to the committee. We're trying to organize ourselves so that we don't have to keep petitioning the same streets over and over and over. If there's no money to build it, and the board is not willing to charge this to Avalorum, then it doesn't go on the list. And we're not petitioning, we're not spending that energy with engineering staff to do this petitioning process. So that's what we're gonna talk about. I probably already talked about it. But.
Which means that, so when we get to that one.
Yes, we pass.
Okay. All right, we'll appreciate that one. Okay, is there a motion to approve?
Mr. Chairman, I have a question. Question, is it too late?
Yes.
For the project, are there any other houses in Weathersfield that are not connected to the sewer?
On this street?
Anomaly, yeah.
So this street in particular, the only 5 houses not currently connected are these 5 here. Everyone else is served by sewer in this area.
The rest of the town is, or no?
I'm sure there are parts of the town that may not be.
Yeah, there are.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just curious, it doesn't seem, I assume that all member towns were tied to sewer as well as water service, but I guess not.
There are some small pockets on individual streets that you'll see that don't have them, yeah.
All right, thank you.
So those five have been on a septic system
Correct,
since the sewer was put in the street.
correct, since the house was built, yeah.
And if I may, and Jessica, so the 5th home that just replaced the septic system, there's no relief, they're gonna be assessed,
Correct, they will be assessed,
and they will have to pay.
correct.
Right.
And they know, yeah.
So that's the downfall of this, right? You have one homeowner that does not want to connect. We dealt with this in Glastonbury when we had a lot of the water main projects that were proposed. But this family will already upgraded their system, and they will be, as part of the ordinance, they will be assessed and will have to pay.
Correct.
Commissioner.
I just want to bring up, for those of you that don't know what Walker Hill Road is, it's basically Franklin Avenue coming from Hartford. This is a major street. This is not a little side road. This is one of the 3 major north-south corridors. It's interesting, and again, I'm going to play stupid here, but Weathersfield doesn't allow you to fix the septic system, replace it. Maybe because it's not on a sewer, they allow them to do it. I know for a fact they don't allow you to do it. If you're on a city sewer, you can't fix your septic system.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand what you were saying. Yeah, that could be true.
It must be because
that must be very true, and that's a health department issue for sure. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just wanted to comment the street again. This isn't some side street on the side. This is It's amazing. It hasn't been done in 100 years.
Right. So again, in my previous comments about the accessible sewer, so right now, this project, we don't have a budget for it, right? We don't have a CIP budget for it. So we already passed the budget for the year, the CIP, you've already approved that. So the only way in which we could do this project would be to modify our budget, our CIP through the Board of Finance, or utilize this fund to pay for the debt service. But and I'm asking you not to make that decision tonight. What I want you to see is start a process so that we decide and prioritize the work that comes out of the accessible sewer. And then if so, this project wants to move forward mid-year, and we have to use accessible sewer fund, the board makes that decision. But we're not asking you to make that decision tonight on the finance, just whether or not you understand the project and the process that we're trying to change as we've changed the ordinances.
Okay, so if I understand this correctly, our vote tonight on this particular item is to approve it to go into public hearing? And
Yes, and then we will have to decide how we're gonna pay for it. So right now, the only solution is the accessible sewer fund. And if it's not on the priority list for that accessible sewer fund and we want to use a CIP, we would have to bring a CIP request to the Board of Finance.
Chair, if I may, we have gone to public hearing, so this would be to approve to start the design, and as Scott said, we'll decide what fund we want to use. But we have gone to public hearing for this.
Okay. Any other comments?
John Myrtle, I don't know if you want to chime in. The resolution, the way it's worded right now is, at this point in time, we would come to you and ask you if you want to proceed with the project using the Accessible Sewer Construction Fund. That's the way we've always done it. That's the way the resolution is written right now. If we want to change that or not vote on that resolution tonight and still look at the projects, because we have item 10 further to discuss, we can do that. Sorry for the interruption.
okay.
But that's the way the resolution is
No,
written.
that's a good clarification.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So thank you for the clarification. I sometimes trying to, get
Yeah.
the simplified language
Right.
is a lot, makes everybody understand what we're doing here.
Yeah.
If I might, Mr. Chairman, as Susan describes, it's absolutely correct. So typically, it would go with BPW's approval, and it would go to the board. But what we're proposing is bringing it to Board of Finance for a determination about how to fund it.
Yeah, if I may, if we could, I want the board to see the prioritization of this 18 million. And they can say, okay, do we put Wolcott Hill on or not? Because again, if we get $3 million from thank you, CRDA, thank you, Jay. And we need, let's say we need $4 million of that 18. Or we're gonna use debt service. Well, I want the board of BPW to decide what the prioritization of that 18 million is as a master plan. And I would ask if you defer that funding source until you review 10, or we can do it at the next meeting. I just hate to spend money on a project that you haven't seen we have Arrowhead that is also, we received 250,000, 200,000? 105. 105. We got, what happened? The other 100. So Arrowhead, we had Arrowhead, we had Bushnell South. We have a number of projects that are all gonna have to come out of this 18 million. And I want the committee to see that before they approve the.
So you're asking for us to vote on further consideration based on the resolution? Is that what we're doing
I think we
here?
gotta change the resolution, because it's asking us to use
Yeah,
this.
the resolution includes funding it from the accessible sewer. So we could either amend the resolution or pause and bring it back to BPW after the, or you can discuss
or the
what
next
we're about
meeting.
to discuss later in tonight's meeting. We could temporarily pass over this, and you could come back to it, or we could bring it back to BPW at the next meeting.
Yeah.
Could we make a motion just to continue the process, to move forward? That's it.
So what, I'm sorry, Commissioner?
Could we make a motion just to continue the process to move forward as you continue to, you work it out?
Without
I mean,
objection.
You're not there, I mean.
Well, I don't wanna spend money that we don't have, right? So the only way to pay for it and hire an engineer to design it would be to utilize the accessible sewer fund,
Well,
so.
that's whatever that process
So I'm
is.
asking if we could defer this until after number 10, and maybe once you understand the pot of money that's only available for this project and other projects, and then we might need another meeting to really fine tune, do we move forward with this project or something else?
Okay,
Okay, I apologize, but
Commissioner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Does this, I guess I'll ask Attorney Myrtle, does this committee have the authority to set the funding source?
So historically, yes, this resolution is the same that's been passed for all.
If we change the funding source, does this committee have the authority to do so?
No, I think that's why we're
Hold on.
suggesting looping in
the ordinance-
Board of Finance.
The ordinance, I'm sorry, but the ordinance allows us to use either accessible sewer fund or CIP debt service ad valorem. So the language, we kept that language in the new ordinance for the accessible sewer. We can do both. The problem is, we already had approved our budget, so we have two options, but the only real option to start this project now is to use accessible sewer. Otherwise, we have to go back to Board of Finance and get another,
Change the budget.
we have to change the budget, the CIP
It
budget.
doesn't change my question. My
Bella?
question is still, even though the ordinance says that, does this committee have the right to unilaterally change the funding source?
Well, Commissioner DeBella.
It's complicated because again, the typical, and this is based off of authorizing appropriation out of the accessible sewer. And then what is also done in conjunction with that usually is there's an appropriation for the project that has gone through Board of Finance and the District Board as part of the annual budget. That piece hasn't happened yet for this project because we're in the midst of changing the process. So deviating from the accessible sewer, there still would need to be some form of action by finance and the board.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Can further discussion on this? So,
So there could be, in the resolution, the first paragraph describes the layout and the schedule of assessments. Second paragraph begins to get into the allocations. It has a list of costs directed to be accrued to the accessible sewer fund. That's the assessments they've paid. The deficit to be charged to the accessible sewer fund. You could propose to strike that and approve the project in concept and recommend, well, again, we're still waiting on the subsequent discussion we're going to have about these projects in general. But at this point, if you wanted to approve the project and have it pause until the bigger question is resolved, you could do that. Or you don't approve the project right now and we wait for the larger question to be addressed.
It's up to you.
well, is there any, how do the members feel about both of these options? You want to wait and not approve anything? Commissioner Pisano?
I'm a little confused here. If we get to item number 10, is that going to clarify item number 7?
Well, what it will, if I may, Mr. Chair, what it will do is, item 10, we're going to be proposing to the board, we probably should have done 10 first, right? So item number 10 is going to say, here's all the projects that we have that we want to identify through resolution as the projects that are in and will be funded by the accessible sewer as a master plan, right? And we have to, because we just changed the ordinances over the last few months, because we are now adding projects in there that were never allowed, which are cost-sharing projects like Bushnell South, Arrowhead, some of the other projects that we've done. And so we have to protect that money, because if we spend it on Willowbrook, for example, we won't actually be able to do those development projects that we so desperately want to do. So that's why I really would like you to see the list of projects and before you spend the money that we may not have to do those projects in number 10.
So would it, Mr. Chairman, through you, would it make sense to skip 7 and go to continue the agenda? And once we clarify 10, then we can go back to 7? That makes sense? Sounds like it makes sense.
I would agree.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
The chair can ask for without objection.
Yeah.
Do that.
Yes.
Just skip 7 and keep going.
Well, yeah, without objection, we'll table 8 and bring it back if,
Table.
No table, just say move, you're gonna move to 8.
Order of business.
10 and then go back to
okay, so
without
we'll,
objection.
okay, we'll pause 8 without objection.
7.
I'm sorry, 7, 8 is not on the agenda any longer. 7, proposed 7, we'll proceed with 9, 10, and then come back and then see if that clarifies the issue for number 7. Without objection?
Is there any objection?
I'm sorry?
Is there any objection?
Right, there's no, without
Objection.
objection.
None.
Okay, very good. So let's proceed. Number 8 is no longer the agenda item, that it is not ready for this committee. Number 9, I would prefer to go to number 10 so that we can continue clarification on number 7 and then go back and then to follow the agenda items.
So you want to do 10
So
first?
let's
Okay.
do number 10.
Okay.
Back and do that.
Yeah, and then we'll come back and do,
All right, we'll wait for we got a couple slides for you.
7, 8,
We're doing 10 now.
I know.
So, as Scott's been saying, you know, there are a number of ordinances that define how we use the Accessible Sewer Construction Fund, and we recently modified some of these ordinances to include deposits from developers in member towns for projects where we can build new drains or build new drainage infrastructure or rehabilitate existing infrastructure, so that we can eliminate stormwater and I&I from getting into our sanitary system. So G3, for example, it's been expanded to include these types of deposits and projects. Originally, G3 allowed assessments and outlet charges to be deposited into the fund, and the only expenditures really were sewers via the layout and assessment process, which we just went through on Wolcott Hill. And, of course, debt service associated with those projects. So now we are able to expend funds from the Accessible Sewer Construction Fund for new infrastructure or rehabilitated infrastructure to support new development. So that was the change in G3, basically, how that operates. In G2, we didn't make any modifications in Ordinance G2. It just defines and shows you that we can pay debt associated with the Accessible Sewer Construction Fund through the, it's just an ordinance saying that that's how we can do that. We can pay the debt through the fund. On S2F, we establish standards by which developers must seek the availability and capacity of our infrastructure prior to connecting. While this has always been our practice, it was never codified. So we came to you and to the government committee and we wrote down our procedures for how we determine availability and capacity. So that's how that one was changed. S2L allows us to address additional discharges due to development in areas where we have limited capacity using the EIRR, which is the equivalent inflow removal rate. So these are just some of the changes that we made to the ordinances to expand the use of the Accessible Sewer Construction Fund. How money gets in, what kind of projects we can use it for moving forward. Is that good? Okay, so on the next page, we have a list of projects that we have. Can you, I don't have, oh. So this is a number of projects. In the past, you know, again, we've only used the fund for layout and assessment procedure, basically the petitions. And when a project was ready to move forward, we would come to the Bureau of Public Works, as we did tonight, with Wolcott Hill Road and extension and seek your approval to move the project forward. Then in the past, we would go to Board of Finance and they would establish an authorization to use the Accessible Sewer Construction Fund to build the project. That's how it's worked in the past. Much like that, with our expanded use of the Accessible Sewer Construction Fund, we wanted to show you this list of projects that are queued up. And I believe, Jonathan, we checked with Finance this week, and the balance of the fund is about 22 million?
I believe so.
Yep, it's up to 22,108.
So these,
Right there, yeah.
Yeah, we emailed this
Yeah,
week
yeah,
on
it's
it.
written
Yeah.
right in.
Okay, that's right. So these are some of the projects that we're working on. Scott mentioned Flatiron Arrowhead. This is a cost share project. They were able to decrease the size of their on-site detention system, their drainage detention system. We are building 655 feet of new drain pipe along Anducello and North Chapel. And the developer for Flatiron Arrowhead and future development along that street will use the new dedicated storm drain pipe instead of the combined sewer. And you can see that, we have that cost estimated at about 2.6 million. The developer provided 105,000. So you could see if we get money from DEEP for grant and loan, because it would be considered a CSO reduction project, we can get significant grant and loan money. The Accessible Sewer Construction Fund would be charged about 1.247 million on that project. Another couple of petitions that are on the list that have been wheels and have been moving are 1200 Windsor Avenue and, as we mentioned earlier, Wolcott Hill Road in Weathersfield. Again, septic issues, people have petitioned us, and we were going to move those projects forward. The city of Hartford, the New Britain Avenue drainage project that's listed on there. The city is building roundabouts along New Britain Avenue and new drainage infrastructure to go along with it. And originally, they planned to tie catch basins into our combined sewer along this route. But now the city will be constructing over 700 feet of new drain pipe and 15 catch basins to connect into a new dedicated storm drainage infrastructure that we are extending into that area. So that's a significant project. Would cost MDC about $3 million. However, the city, as I said, through a DPA, will be building their share of a new a new storm drain and all of those catch basins. If we go too deep and we get funding for that money, again, because it's a CSO reduction project, we're looking at 1.5 million that would get charged to the Accessible Sewer Construction Fund. And then finally, Bushnell South, Scott mentioned, that's a huge project. It's another cost share project, an expansive area. And we have a slide, the next slide can show you the picture of it, but multiple developments underway whereby they will be able to decrease the size of their on-site stormwater detention systems. Thus, they'll have more area available for actual development, bigger buildings, because we were going to put in new drainage infrastructure in the street, about 6,500 feet of new dedicated storm drain pipe. And then they would connect to that. This is a huge benefit to our system, as we have CSOs in the immediate area, which will benefit from this dedicated storm pipe. And our new storm drainage in this area would be sized for future upstream separation as well, which actually goes down towards Hartford Hospital. So we would be putting drains in Elm, Buckingham, Capitol, and along Hudson to accommodate all of that construction in the Bushnell South area. So we've estimated that at about $10 million. However, Scott mentioned CRDA is proposing to give us $3 million towards that. If we go to DEEP again and get a grant and loan, we're looking at charging the Accessible Sewer Construction Fund around $3 million for that project in that column. So those are some of the projects that right now, these are the hot projects that we were moving on. We have a bunch of pending petitions we're closing out, which is actually another item on the agenda this evening. We're closing out all these old agendas that have been, old petitions that have been around for years and years and haven't moved anywhere. And then some of these other ones we're closing out that aren't getting closed tonight, that we're still researching so that we can close out, are listed here. And then we have some other pending projects that we may have cost shares with. If we can get Hartford Hospital to come to the table, all the development they're doing down there, to do some cost share. Along New Britain Avenue, once the roundabout at White Street is completed, the city's going to go do the Stone Street area with another roundabout. So these are all pending projects, as Scott mentioned, that we have kind of lined up in the queue to start using, and which fund do we want to, build these projects from?
Susan, before you move on.
Yes.
This is really important because this is all of the changes that we've talked about, all of the new ordinances. We're empowering BPW, Board of Finance, and the full board. You've never had this. We used, how many projects did we have a list of pending petitions?
Petitions?
Yeah.
20?
20, right? So they just sit there, and then somebody calls and says, hey, can we re-petition? What we're trying to do is we're trying to organize ourselves through the board to say, if it's not on that list and we don't have the money, the board we're asking you to approve these projects, right? And if you approve that project, anything here can't go because you don't have the money. You have to wait till next year, or wait till there's more money in the accessible sewer fund. And that's why I say to you, Wolcott Hill. Wolcott Hill is only $1 million, but Kenyon's it's not that expensive. So if you put Wolcott Hill on, there's no room for any of these projects right now. That's the point. We want the board to decide rather than just a bunch of projects sitting around for years. We really want to protect this fund for these types of cost-sharing projects because they come up mid-year. We don't have the money for them. We cannot build a development. We cannot provide services for the sole service purpose for service of a developer and charge ad valorem. It has to be through some other means. And we changed the ordinances to allow us to use the accessible sewer fund. So the point is, when we have somebody, those pending projects that are there, if it's in the beginning of the year and you approve it, and we bring it through the budget cycle through CIP, then it paid for by ad valorem. But mid-year, the only way to pay for it is through this 20, now $22 million. And so now you can see, okay, Wolcott's there, it's on the list. We're saying it's a priority for us because it's fresh, it's there. But remember, these projects can't go because we have to start design, we have to start planning, and all those things. So now we can go back to number 7, right, and say it makes sense. We're validating that we've got the money, we can pay for the debt service. We're assuming that we're going to be getting grant monies from some of the project, which is great, and that adds to the total by our charter. And the question is, does the BPW agree with the master plan now? And we're asking you to approve it tonight, and it would include Wolcott Hill, number 7, but these projects have no funding source mid-year. If these pop, Kenyon Street's been going back and forth for a long time, and
We haven't heard from them in
we
months.
haven't heard from them, and that happens. These developments start up and they start, getting hot and interested, and then they kind of fall apart. So we don't really expect Kenyon to come forward. The Hartford Hospital, those are real types development projects, but they're, we're a ways. I don't think we're going to see anything from them within this year. We'll probably next year, and then we can focus on those next year. But
Cal, I'm sorry, Cal.
Yeah, Cal.
I'm sorry, Bill?
To Scott, I'm sorry. The Hartford Hospital piece, is that going over into Washington Street or?
Well, they got a lot of developments over there, right? Yeah, there's a lot of development there, and we're trying to work with them through a master plan. We did the garage first, which was last year, and that was their hot priority, and we did that, but that flows in a different direction, not towards Capitol Avenue. But there's a lot of projects there. We just have to work through that with them.
What about Bushnell South? Is there a new developer?
No, not yet. But it doesn't matter for us because we're getting paid to build the new storm sewer system independent of whether Bushnell South, the actual 165 Capitol Avenue, whether there's a developer there or not.
The only way it's gonna work anyway.
Right. And that will hopefully attract, it'll attract somebody else.
I'm sorry, will this help, for instance, some of those developers that are kind of waiting to move their development forward if we move on this so that we would be able to help them move their projects forward faster?
Yeah, on Bushnell South, from my understanding, and we don't have a lot of information on what's going on there, except that behind the old 55 Elm Street, they are actually moving forward. That's the next project right, James? That's the next project that it will be built. Yeah, and that's on Capitol. I think they call that 65 Capitol. I don't know what the address is, but it's the parking lot right behind 55 Elm on Capitol. And then they're also developing the corner of Elm and Trinity. And so those are going forward for sure. And that's great. And it really won't help the Elm Trinity Street project because it's the footprint. They're not going to be putting any kind of. They're not changing the footprint of the building, but it will provide a developer like for the Bushnell South project. It will provide an ability for them to know exactly what their expenses are going to be for sewer and storm, and what their expenses won't be. And the way the agreement is written, that everybody that's been identified in that Bushnell South development, that master plan, which is an attachment to the agreement, they will be allowed to connect when it's built. And so the sooner we get that done, the sooner we start building. The goal would be to prioritize that and get that the design started as soon as possible.
Commissioner DeBello?
Yeah, so that what you're talking about, the stormwater pipe we're building is going to come down Hudson all the way to the circle.
Yeah, somewhere, yes.
That'll actually create another development site on the
Sure.
east side of Hudson, across the street from 55 Elm.
Correct. And the goal would be that this, at some point, this would actually go right up Hudson and connect to the hospital developments, right? That would be the goal.
Okay, Commissioner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to move over to Commissioner Bazzano's seat, next to your seat, John, because now I'm a little confused. Scott, you said we're going to discuss and vote on approving these projects?
So
I do not see that on the agenda anywhere.
No, it appears as a report.
Accessible Sewer Fund.
Right.
There's no resolution on
Okay.
this.
So
Yeah, the goal, and I apologize, the goal is that this list is an engineering list that we've been keeping forever, right? And on an Excel spreadsheet. And our goal is we only have 18 million, and we have to prioritize and identify what this money is going to be saved and spent on. And so my goal is that this, and we don't have to do it tonight, but my goal is that this list, whatever it is approved by the board, and that's why I deferred number 7, because we want to make sure that the board is making these decisions, not engineers making these decisions. And how we make the decisions are whatever comes first across the desk, and then we bring it to the board, the accessible sewer. But we're trying to organize a master plan with this fund. And so just like we bring the CIP list to the Board of Finance, just like we bring the Clean Water Project list to the Board of Finance and the full board and the appropriate committees for the budget cycle, we want to do the same thing with the Accessible Sewer Fund.
Yeah, and technically, 3 of these projects, Chris just pointed out that, Flatiron Arrowhead is already an approved project.
Right.
You know what I mean? 1200 Windsor Avenue, it's already an approved petition. and New Britain Ave was the other one.
Yep.
Has already gone through the process, and it's just, we just wanted to show you all of them together, that this year, these are the ones that are moving. But we do still have to come to you individually with the budgets every time to say to you, how do you want to pay for it?
Yeah, but we want a master plan because there's only, like I said, there's only so much money. And the petitions can be paid for by Avalorum if so chosen. But I don't want, we've got to have a structure around this 18 million, now 22 million. It's got to be a master plan approved by this committee, Board of Finance, full board, so that we're not, like I said, somebody's going to come to me and say, why can't we do Kenyon Street? And I know who that's going to be. And I'm going to say, because John, you approved this. Where's John? He left. You approved this, and this is all the money we got. And this is our priority and our master plan for the year. So I don't have the money for Kenyon. That's the point. We get a lot of pressure that we get this development and they're hot to go and they got the money and we don't have any mechanism to pay for it because we can't charge Avalorum. So we need structure around how we spend this money. And I'm proposing that a master plan of this money is approved by the committees and the Board of Finance.
Okay, so this number 7 we were talking about before, and we're not gonna open up right now, but just to clarify some issues here. The moving forward on that particular item is predicated on the approval, okay, of some funding mechanism.
Right.
Okay? This particular presentation is kind of your informal.
Right.
Not approved, okay, by the board.
Right.
That you're working off on right now.
Right now.
So that if you moved on number 7, then you could then, because you have a list already, albeit not sanctioned yet, blessed, you would be able to then use that mechanism to continue to work on these projects.
Well, so yes, but all I'm suggesting is that these projects are already being used for the process that we had before was we decided, staff decided, I mean, the board approved these projects, right? But we decided, okay, here's our priority, right? The staff's priority. And all we're suggesting is the board should have weigh in on that priority. Because the majority of this money that we're trying to utilize is for these development projects. And Scott Jellison was accused of being anti-development. And the only way we can do these projects is with this fund. So all I'm suggesting is when we do approve a project like Wilcott, the board understands, the committee understands, the Board of Finance understands, well, it may kick out some of these development projects that we can't do. Because we don't have the money, because the master plan has been approved. And I apologize for it being confusing, but this is completely different from the way we've been doing it in the past, and that's why we made all those changes. And I would just offer, we probably should take this in a little bit and bring back, this, a proper resolution to approve before we approve number 7. I am concerned that as we approve these onesies, twosies, we're not paying attention to the math, right? There's only 22 million. So if we approve it and you think it's okay, but the next project that comes through that might be right around the corner, that might be more important to this committee than the one that you just approved.
Not unlike a capital improvement program.
Right, exactly. So that's why what we want to get to in the coming years is every year we bring the CIP budget, we bring the clean water project budget, and we bring the accessible sewer project budget, and you're approving all of the projects, and we can't do anything but those projects in that given year without change, right? We're just in the infancy stages of of making a process for these types of projects with the new ordinances.
Mr. Bell?
So Scott, what you're saying then is if there was any change in the first 2, 3, 4, 5, then you could make changes in the rest of it. You would come back to the board.
We want to come back to the board. We want the board to approve it, and we're not going to change it unless we have to bring it back to you, and you agree that we, let's just say this, for example, right? Let's approve this tonight. I'm just let's assume we approved it tonight. And then tomorrow morning, Kenyon Street came forward and said, we're coming, we're doing it, we're going to build it, right? And then we come back to you at the next meeting and say, you approved Wolcott, but we don't have any money to do Kenyon. What do you want to do? Do you want to do Kenyon or do you want to do Wolcott? So that gives the board and the committees more control over how we're spending this money. MDC staff engineering decided how we spent the 18 million. We want to give that back to the board.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. When we get back to number 7, I'd like to be recognized to make a motion.
Okay.
And John, listen carefully, because it's probably going to need to be corrected.
Just to clarify, so what are we doing tonight then? Nothing?
Well, we're gonna go back to 7.
No, I'm talking about right here in this. This is just an example of what you want to put together formally. So tonight we're doing nothing other than the fact, say, that's good, it's a good idea, go
Right.
back and do it. Okay.
We'll bring it back to you
What
then.
I hear is
Yeah.
that this is a report. He'll come back with a resolution,
And we'll vote on
with
something like this.
with a map
Okay, is that like
that we
next
will
meeting?
vote on.
Is that next meeting or something longer
Next
than
meeting.
Right, so that's the next step on this particular
that? Okay.
issue, because it's a report, so we don't have to move, take action on that. Commissioner Wolf?
So, and correct me if I'm wrong here, this fund right now gives staff discretion to get working on certain projects that exist or that are going to be undertaken outside of CIP or the budget process. But if we propose projects to be undertaken under this program at the same time we're approving the budget and CIP, then staff doesn't have really any discretion
Correct.
for the rest of the year and needs to come back to BPW to get anything else done. So
Right.
that's a policy decision that we all, I think, need to take in, but maybe we want to consider leaving some space for things that pop up, rather than completely, filling up this agenda and then having to choose, if we do this one, we can't do that one. I don't know, but just an idea.
If I may, that's exactly my point. Wolcott is a perfect example, right? If if you approve Wolcott, then you understand, we don't have any more money. We've already got projects identified. We have to do those, right? Because we're getting grant money, we're getting these cost-sharing agreements per the new ordinance. So if there's no fluff in there, right? And that's a great point. The board might decide maybe we should leave $1 million or $2 million in that fund for those what-if scenarios when they just pop up in the middle of the year. I agree with you 100%.
So I think what we're looking at then, as you begin to put some meat on this resolution, that, we consider some flexibility so that, you don't stop
Right.
everything, and then have to come back to the.
Let's go back to 7 and give it a shot.
Right, so.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Any more discussion on the report, on number 10? If not, I'd like us to go back to number 7, and I recognize Commissioner Curry.
Thank you, Mr.
Make a
Chairman.
motion.
I move that we approve this project going forward, striking all references to funding that's in the resolution as presented to us, and that it be referred to the Finance Committee with their charge of being determination or making a recommendation of funding source to the district board.
Okay, so this would be an amended you would amend this resolution.
The amendment is made.
Well, I'm,
It would be amended because you'd be striking the language and providing
yeah, it
basically a
could
new,
be approve and then amend, but I'm making
I'll say a
a
resolution.
modified motion of that resolution.
is there a second to that modified resolution?
That, yeah.
It's been seconded
What
to
do
the
you say,
resolution.
John?
Yeah, would you mind if I read it back to you and you can correct me if I have anything? Motion to approve this project going forward, striking all references to funding in the resolution as presented to us, and it be referred to the Finance Committee and their charge be making a determination of funding source to the district board.
Pretty much it.
Any further discussion? Not? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Just some point of clarification, Mr. Chairman. Are we voting on the amendment right now? We're voting on the amendment, and then we're gonna vote on it as a
It's
whole?
not really an amendment, is it, John?
What are we doing?
Resolution.
You,
You're changing the language on the resolution, right?
We wrote a new resolution, basically.
well, yeah, the motion you articulated was a motion to approve the project. And then your reference to striking all references to funding in the resolution. It kind of was a new resolution or new motion that then references the original pre-drafted
However
one.
you want, but yeah.
The amendment becomes a substitution. Doesn't it?
You're voting on the amendment, John.
Okay. Thank you.
And then we'll vote on the new resolution. So all in favor of the amended resolution?
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing no objections, we'll then take a vote, a motion to approve the new resolution.
As amended.
All in favor?
Aye.
All against? Okay, this motion is approved. Thank you very much. And we'll wait now for the new resolution that clarifies then the game plan.
Next
here.
meeting, yes.
And this presentation that you made tonight will be back on the Finance Committee for all us to hear again.
Correct.
Thank
Yes,
you. Look forward to that.
yes.
So what do we go to 8 now?
Okay,
No, eight's dead.
so now we go to item number 9. Discussion regarding a potential program for stormwater connections in separated member towns. A presentation on that?
Yes, we do. If I may, Mr. Chairman. Jason Waterbury is going to give a presentation. We have done a number of presentations. This is about, we've talked about this in the past, the benefits to providing a free storm lateral to really to the non-Hartford towns. We already provide that to the Hartford towns because it's a CSO community when we do separation. So this is more of this discussion about how do we incentivize our non-Hartford towns to perform stormwater work in their town. And we've had this conversation at 2 or 3. The last presentation we gave last time was about the cost-benefit analysis of doing this type of program. And now Jay's going to present how would we, what are we proposing to do as part of this program.
Thank you, Scott. Jason Waterbury, Assistant Manager of Engineering. On this slide, as we all know, we've talked about before, like Scott mentioned, wet weather isn't really just a local issue, it's a regional issue. It impacts everyone. Highlighted on this slide is just some of the reasons why it impacts everyone and why our member towns should prioritize the removal of stormwater and groundwater from the sewer system, and also then in conjunction with that, rerouting that water to potentially a storm drain system. Some of those highlights are that, you know, this type of work or this issue does actually have consent decree ramifications. There are areas of the collection system where rehabilitation and repair of our mainline sewers alone is not enough to comply with the order to eliminate SSOs. Additionally to that, you know, there are existing ordinances that should be enforced, whether it be town ordinances or our own MDC ordinance. And then there's the cost to treat that extra water, which I have more in detail on another slide, that also impacts everyone. Highlighted on this slide are some of the example projects that we've done to either increase conveyance, whether it be transportation of that excess water, or increase capacity at a treatment plant to treat that excess water. All of these projects are really wet weather projects, whether it be at Hartford, Rocky Hill treatment plants. The tunnel obviously is a wet weather project, and then you've got some large interceptor sewers. These projects alone represent $1.3 billion that we spent. It doesn't, and that number doesn't include the future R&R costs that are be associated with these assets as we move forward. None of these projects would be necessary really to the scope that they are, or they would either been eliminated or reduced scope if that wet weather problem wasn't the current issue. This slide shows the costs to treat that wet weather flows. The costs go back to a calculation in our long-term control plan at $650 per million gallons. We estimated that in 2025, we spent about $10.3 million to transport and treat that excess water at our 4 treatment plants. The table on the right-hand side shows how that $10.3 million would be allocated to the 8-member towns via the ad valorem costs, just using the same ad valorem formula. Obviously, that's just 2025. That number grows every single year, and it's just going to continue to compound. This slide is our existing system. It says combined sewer on the slide, but it really it applies to several areas of our separated system as well. You've got on the right-hand side, you've got your building property. You've got the green pipe that is coming up from the house that represents a roof leader. You've got the blue pipe that goes underneath the house that represents a foundation drain. Then you've got a sump pump kind of shown in the middle of the basement floor that is discharging to the sewer lateral. All of these sources are actually discharging the sewer lateral. This is the existing situation that despite the ordinances we are finding almost on a daily basis, and this is what we're trying to get rid of. This is the proposed situation, or proposed state, shall we say, where we've got those sources that I mentioned on the prior slide with whether it be the roof leader, the sump pump, or the foundation drain, now connected to a storm lateral. That storm lateral has a couple components to it. I'll start with in the road. The now new addition to this slide compared to the prior slide is now there's a storm drain. That storm drain may or may not have been there on an existing condition, which I'll go through in some scenarios coming up. Well, as part of the project to install that storm drain, or if there is an existing storm drain, there would be a new storm lateral installed from the main pipe in the road to the property line. That would be paid for by the town, right, or a member town. The MDC would then pay for the work going from the property line back through the house. It's worth pointing out, though, that the work inside the house, that disconnection work, we're already doing right now. That's part of the sewer backup prevention program that's funded annually under the integrated planning budget as part of the capital process. So that program exists. That is not a new cost. The new cost to the district would be the house connection or storm lateral from the property line to the house. One of the reasons we're proposing this is we've done pilots in the past in various non-Hartford communities, and this really represents the best solution and most permanent solution to get this water out of the system and reduce those wet weather flows that we're seeing at our treatment plant that we're paying for every year. This is an excerpt from one of those pilot programs I mentioned. Really, I throw this on the slide just because, and it's been presented before, but the bottom right-hand corner is the sewer backup prevention work. So really one of the more complicated aspects of this whole process we're already doing. And then, the details up top are just potential ways that these house connections could be connected to the town storm system, whether it be a pipe or a catch basin or whatnot.
Okay.
Yep.
5 minutes, sure. And one of our challenges we have is, as Jay mentioned, we already spent $1.3 billion, and as the systems in these towns get older and older and older, we just keep getting more and more stormwater, some way, somehow, from these homes. But as Jay mentioned, we're already doing the lower bottom graph with this, which is a sump pump, and we're basically piping that outside and dumping it on the grass.
That's
right?
correct.
And so that creates all kinds of problems, as we know, right? and with homes too close together, or in Hartford, we have ice issues with sidewalks. So what happens is we come in, we spend our money, we put in the sump pump, we discharge it to the backyard. We leave, someone comes in, repipes it right back into our sewer system. It's a false sense of security. And our point is, we can continue to do what we're doing, but we're just chasing our tail. We'll never, ever address the real magnitude of, of the stormwater that's coming from the non-Hartford towns. It's coming from the homes and the businesses. And the only way to stop it is to actually really provide a practical solution for the homeowner instead of dumping it in their backyard. And there's two ways to do that. We can enforce our ordinances against our 7-member towns, or we can, and a lot of the towns have their own ordinances that say they can't do this, or we can encourage them to build storm systems. And this is a concept of, that extra, what are we spending on average with a sump pump in the backwater prevention program in the home?
Like $6,000 to $10,000 a house.
And so we're already spending $6,000 to $10,000. The average lateral is 11. So you're already spending 6, and eventually when we walk away, or a new homeowner comes in and takes over the home, and they don't like their wet backyard, they just re-pump it back into our system. So we wasted $6,000, and it's about an $11,000 ad. Sorry, Jack.
That's okay. Thank you. Basically, there's a lot to digest on this slide, but in summary, there's 4 scenarios of how this would play out, whether it be a town-initiated project where a town may have identified an area of its footprint that it knows it needs, either it doesn't have storm drainage and it needs storm drainage for street flooding issues, or the existing storm drainage isn't sufficient for whether it be current storms or whatever. We would then work with the town and coordinate our sewer backup prevention program work and this new house connection program, for lack of a better term, work to basically disconnect any of the houses that are connected with inflow sources along that same route to the new storm drain. The second most likely scenario would be, I guess probably the district's top choice and most interested choice from our perspective, but we have priority areas, like I mentioned on that first slide, where we know we have to remove II in order to comply with the consent decree. So in a perfect scenario or a perfect situation, we would overlap those priority areas with where a town has its priority for storm drainage, and you'd have some marriage. And typically that's going to happen because usually where there is a storm drainage issue, it's probably where we already have a wet weather issue as well. And then the bottom 2 scenarios are customer driven, whether it be there's an existing storm drainage available, and then in that case, the town would have to do the lateral from the storm drain to the property line, and we would connect the dots. Or there is no storm drainage, and then we would be working with the town to potentially put in storm drainage in that area. So basically, there's 3 programs that would touch a given property under this future scenario. You'd have the backup prevention program, which exists now. That would continue on just as it does. You'd have a town-initiated storm drainage project, potentially, where the town would be putting in its storm drain and putting a lateral up to the property line. And then you would either have this new stormwater house connection program or a modified version of the existing existing house connection program that would fund the pipe from the property line to the house. It could be done in conjunction with, as far as like similar to the conversation we just had, the funding is really a subject to the board, whether it be IP funded or accessible sewer or EIRR funds. All those are options that are up to the board's discretion as how this actually proceeds. But in summary, there'd be a lot of coordination, and we'd have our priorities, the towns would have their priorities, and there would be some match. The conclusion is that staff is recommending to proceed with memorandums of understanding, which with member towns, as those towns come forward. We've already engaged in conversations with the town of West Hartford. That's what initiated this whole conversation, where the town of West Hartford has storm drains that they want to put in. And then from those MOUs, the allowance to construct these stormwater house connections, as long as there's an executed MOU in place. And that's the end of that.
And if I may, you know, the MOU needs to be approved by this committee and
And the
the full
district board,
board.
probably.
So the first, you know, question is, you know, what does the committee think about the concept? But we would definitely bring, you know, any MOU that we would propose to this committee and the full board for approval. But it's just the catch-22. It's not getting, the stormwater is not getting better. We just heard, and this is a very interesting topic, wet weather. One of the lists up there, Jay had $600 million. We had to build a new wet weather system, and that's a permitted CSO. It literally, it was designed, paid for by DEEP to actually permit CSOs to be discharged into the river. And that's what a wet weather system does. And years ago, when I first engaged DEEP at the NBC, everybody's worried about the CSOs that aren't regulated that are going to the river. Well, now they're starting to, we have a meeting coming up next week. Now they want to start focusing on identifying these wet weather systems that are actually discharging, you know, hundreds of millions of gallons of, it's treated at a lower level. There's no secondary treatment. There's a primary treatment. So we take all of the stuff out of the waste, and there's some primary treatment, chemical treatment, but that's it. And that's a wet weather system. So our system is designed as a plant for 80 MGD, and we get 200 MGD, 250, 300 MGD in a massive storm. And that's all going through the wet weather system. But right now, that's a permitted, it's allowed. It is, the DEEP has paid for it, and it's part of our system and part of other systems. But now people are realizing, well, we didn't know that. We spent billions of dollars to get down to a 1-year level of control, and you're still discharging hundreds of millions of gallons. Yeah. And so there's going to come a time where we're going to have, or the industry is going to start seeing consent orders on the wet weather system that was approved by DEEP and by EPA. And so all is our point is, it's not, the stormwater is not getting better from the non-Hartford towns. It's only going to get worse. The $10 million a year is going to just keep growing, continue to grow, unless we do something. And as Jay said, lining the pipes will only do so much. The majority of the pipe areas, the majority of these towns that we line the pipes, and I'll use Weathersfield as an example, we line the pipes, and all of a sudden people say, hey, my backyard is wet. I've never had because our pipe that goes to the Rocky Hill treatment plant was a French drain for someone's yard. And now we line the pipe, and all of a sudden their basement's wet and their yard is wet. And what do? They take a sump pump and they pump it right back into our sewer system. So we're spending all this money to fix our system to get the I&I out, the infiltration out. The other part of the I is inflow. Inflow is pumped stormwater, groundwater from the basement. That's why we call it I&I. Well, if we're spending all this money to fix our system, yes, we get the benefit of a structurally sound pipe. That's good, so it doesn't collapse, but it's not stopping the groundwater that's being pumped into our system unbeknownst to us from someone's basement. So we're chasing our tail, and we really need to do something. And the easy answer is just fine our towns, our 7-member towns, make them comply with their ordinances. I don't think that's practical. I think that Southington did this a number of years ago. They started fining people $100 if they had stormwater in a separated community being pumped into the sewer system, and most people said, sure, I'll give you $100. So it's not solving the problem. It's only prolonging the problem.
Well, yeah,
You had a busy night, first meeting.
No regrets?
Mr. Chairman, this is Commissioner Bush
Scott.
on the WebEx.
Commissioner Bush. Sorry, Commissioner Bush.
Hi, through you, Mr. Chairman. So this has been an issue that I've been dealing with since day one of my involvement with the MDC on this board. So we talked about West Hartford spending upwards of $500 million on some sort of storm sewer system. And on the chart that you presented earlier, it cost about $2.5 million a year for West Hartford to send additional storm sewer to be treated, to the combined, the sewer and the storm together. It cost about $2.5 million per year to be treated. I mean, why isn't it better to direct this combined water into our new $2 billion tunnel and wait for it to slowly be treated when the weather stops, instead of trying to spend 500 to even more money just for one town? It seems like we could treat water for 100 years before we spent $500 million treating the water. So that's my question, I guess, is why is it so important to spend the money on infrastructure instead of just treating this combined water and storing it and treating it at a later time?
Would you like me to answer? Scott Jellison. So Commissioner, thank you. And Jay can jump in here, but there's a combination. The tunnel is really only sized up to a 25-year storm at the CSOs and for West Hartford and Newington. And so the challenge that we have is what happens at a 26-year storm, a 27-year storm, a 30-year storm, a 50-year storm, a 125-year storm. This water is what can't get into the tunnel, comes into your basement or it comes into your streets. So the tunnel isn't large enough when you look at the magnitude of a major storm. It's not large enough to handle these 100-year, 200-year storms. And so no matter how big the pipe is, it always would need to be bigger. And the easiest way to not have to treat this water at the plant, which is creating overflows into the rivers, is to remove it from the sewer system, period. So that's the easiest and quickest solution. When I say quick, you're talking 100 years. You're right. West Hartford has identified $300 million worth of work in just one component of their town. There's a study that shows that two other areas are equally $300 million, $1 billion worth of work. This is not going to happen overnight, but you can't treat the stormwater. It just continues to grow, and you'll need more tunnels. And Jay, I don't know if you want to add to that.
I was going to say that to add on that point, just to use Lynbrook as an example, the tunnel doesn't benefit Lynbrook. It's too far disconnected hydraulically, Lynbrook to the tunnel locations for any benefit. So say using Lynbrook as an example, if you wanted to transport and treat it instead, you'd have to upsize the sewer in Lynbrook. You'd have to upsize the interceptor between Lynbrook and there. You're talking about several miles of new pipe that there probably isn't even room in there in the collection system or the street right away to do that approach. And that's just using Lynbrook alone. You'd be expanding pipes everywhere throughout towns if you wanted to go with the transport and treat route.
Commissioner?
Just a quick question. I think in the best of worlds, why you presented would be wonderful if we could implement it and have it happen tomorrow. But my initial thought and concern was that in asking towns to participate and share some of the costs as it relates to separation, are they going to then qualify for the same pot of money that MDC seeks when requesting funds for the same reason?
Great question. I hope the answer is yes. To date, we haven't received grant money for separation work outside of Hartford. We've asked numerous times, and I think it's something we're going to try to pursue as part of our next long-term control plan update. To date, DEEP's only funded separation projects in Hartford. But I think even though we've pointed out to DEEP on multiple occasions there is a significant CSO reduction value to doing this work outside of Hartford, that's the approach that we would continue to take.
Okay, maybe possibly if this plan was to be brought forward and approved, that in seeking those funds, we could coordinate with the town so that the fund is not given to the town and then to MDC, but it's given to both at the same time because it's a joint project. Not two separate projects, it's a joint project.
And one thing I'd like to add is one of the reasons Deep agreed to let us do the North Hartford pilot with the private property work was to allow us to then, through that work and through the post-construction metering and whatnot, show that it is cost effective to take that approach and to do that full separation, including at the property and the lateral lining. So our goal is to use the results of that pilot study to then add it into our long-term control plan update, and then make the argument that this work outside of Hartford has a CSO benefit and it would be eligible for that money.
Thank you.
I guess ultimately what we're trying to do is reduce our costs at the end of all of this process, which is when the water comes down to our plant. And that has a dollar value, okay? This is a long-term project, a very long-term project. At what point do we break even or see a benefit, to the cost that we are, initiating, as we try to get all these folks on board, and then finally be able to, where is that delta? How long do we have to? How many homes do we have to put into the program before we're actually able to see a cost savings at our end?
Yes, and Scott Jellison, if I may, and I'm just going to we'll use a couple of project areas as an example. You will do a project in a localized area, and all depends on the sewer system and a lot of factors, but it's a lifetime project, right? Overall, it's going to take a long time for us to see a benefit. But if we do nothing, we're spending the money, as I mentioned, we're spending the money anyways, but we're not seeing any benefit because the I&I is going up, not down, even with all the money we're spending. But I will give you an example of, we'll use 4 Mile Road, right? 4 Mile Road, 2013.
Yeah.
West Hartford is one of the worst contributors of the wet weather system to the system, and Commissioner Bush will know this. They have a significant issue with water in basements because of all of the stormwater that's being pumped into the system. And yet we did a pilot in 2013 at Greenhurst and at 4 Mile, and we separated that town. We separated that street. And what we showed the town of West Hartford was, if you separate your streets, you can have a major benefit. And that's what happened in 4 Mile. They don't have the problems that they were having in the past. To fix the whole town, it's $1 billion program. And we know the town doesn't have $1 billion. So, but every gallon of stormwater that a non-Hartford town gets, the regulators have always focused on the CSOs in Hartford without recognizing what's the core reason, what's the root cause of the CSOs. And I'm not saying all of it is our other 7 towns, but a majority of it is. And so, to Jay's point, we're trying to convince the regulators that just because you fund CSO projects, if you fund and provide grant money for SSO projects in a non-Hartford town, you'll actually see a benefit in Hartford. And that's what we're doing the pilot in North Hartford, is to show them by removing the stormwater from the home, you have a significant benefit at our CSOs. So it's a long-term project, but if we do nothing, as I said, the Weathersfield trunk sewer interceptor that goes to the treatment plant in Rocky Hill, we lined that 2000.
Parts of it are lined back in the 90s.
90s,
yes.
but we did it in 2013,
yes,
somewhere in there, and people started complaining. As you know, Weathersfield is against the river. It's a very low-lying area, and that pipe was in such bad condition with all the cracks in the pipe. It was acted as a French drain, and so it absorbed all the groundwater and it brought it to the plant. And then it created a SSO. And so we were fined for that. And we were, remember $800,000 for the consent order, $800,000 for the consent decree. And we lined that pipe. And then people start complaining about the wet basements and the wet backyards. And then we start to see our I&I go up. So we're spending money and we're not seeing the benefit because people are cheating the system by discharging it back into the system. So we're continuing to spend money and we're not seeing the benefit, is my point.
So so basically, what we're saying is that if we encourage these member towns to separate
Yeah.
water, that we would then provide the additional benefit of helping their homeowners keep their homes dry, basically.
Right, and keep the water from coming to the Hartford plant.
So that would be our
Yeah,
benefit, but I'm
exactly.
talking about what's in it for the towns
Yes.
themselves.
So Scott, what you're saying is, if we fixed every single I&I issue in the 8 towns, we'd still have the issue because of non-member towns. So it never can be, it'll never get fixed. I mean, it's an ongoing.
It's a vicious cycle, right?
It is a vicious cycle. So at this point,
if you could remove, and Jay said this, right? If we could snap our fingers and say, let's remove all of the wet weather from from the 7 towns, we would not have had to spend $4 billion. Think about it. So imagine if we were smart enough in the 80s to say, let's spend $4 billion today and get all this wet weather out, and we wouldn't be spending what we're spending, and it's gone forever.
would you still have a consent order because you got the other water coming from the other towns?
No, you would have removed it. If in the 80s, we actually spent, and all of our towns removed that I&I from their system. Everybody, right? All 7 towns. If you removed all that I&I from our system back in the 80s, in the 90s, the 2000s, we would not be spending the $3 to $4 billion we're spending on the Clean Water Project, right? You'd be spending some because you have to still fix the pipes that are broke and need to be fixed. Upgrade the plants where they need to be upgraded, but the capacity, the increased capacity of our wet weather system, the tunnels, all of that increased capacity is caused by the I&I.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, this is Commissioner Bush again.
Sorry.
This is Commissioner Bush online.
Oh, Commissioner Bush.
Thank you. Appreciate it through you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I appreciate the second look at the sump pump projects. That seemed like a good idea in the beginning. And I do agree that I think it has become more of a waste of money because I think that people become very unsatisfied with that after it is being implemented on their property with the way that the water gets pumped into their yard. Being someone who has had that happen to me on multiple different properties and some of my clients. So I think that moving away from the sump pump program is definitely a good idea. And I'd like to also just put my full support behind the idea of trying to, and I apologize for not knowing the acronyms, but we need to get grant money to help the towns, because if we can make it as part of the Clean Water Project and we can encourage DEEP to give money to the towns as a grant to help it, it would definitely be much more palatable and practical, because there's the biggest issues that we're dealing with on the town level is just the money. It's just such a huge amount of money. So I like the direction that the conversation is going, and if we can continue in that direction, I think it could possibly bear fruit. So I just wanted to put that comment out there. Thank you.
Another night.
Okay. Right. Any other comments, discussion on this? It is a report. Thank you for providing the concept. I'm sure we'll be hearing more about this down the road.
We would like to have at some point, when the committee is ready, we would like to look at this concept and whether or not the committee and the full board is willing to consider some program, or even a pilot program, that we could do, that would implement these recommendations. And I agree with Commissioner Curry, and we've been trying to get DEEP to consider, we've had very specific conversations with DEEP regarding the West Hartford projects, trying to get those projects considered for a grant and loan. So, but we would like to come back and revisit this
Yes,
topic.
I think it would be important to provide some kind of maybe a pilot project that would also give us an indication of actually how much water we would be taking out of the system, so that then we can have some kind of evaluation of the program, and to see if it can be replicated, in other places, and what the appetite is by the municipalities to try and do this.
Yep.
Okay. Commissioner?
Just, could we also, through you, Mr. Chair, Scott, could we also add to that to show the impact of doing such a pilot program in one community, the impact it'll have financially on all of the communities?
Yes, absolutely. We will do that.
Okay. Well, thank you. I'd like to move on. Agenda item number 11. Consideration and potential action, the close out of dormant sewer petitions.
Move approval?
Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded, discussion?
You ready? Okay. Thank you. Let's see, slide.
I think we're going to have a motion and a vote without any.
Oh, would you,
Discussion.
happy to skip?
Well, I asked if there was any discussion or any
No, I meant, yeah,
presentation.
not from the board, but presentation's not needed if the board's ready to vote. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, I thought you were just so happy to
All that
educate us.
preparation.
But if no objection, then we'll just move on, and all in favor of motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion is moved. Thank you. Next is the item 12, which is the opportunity for general public comments. Do we have anyone in the audience or online that would like to make a public comment? Hearing none. Number 13, are there any requests for consideration for future agenda items by commissioners? Hearing none. Move to adjourn.
So move.
Okay, no objection. We're adjourned. I apologize.